All right, so I want to speak to you guys. It's your boy Big Papita 396, and I'm coming to you guys live from the route. And I want to speak about some of the misinformation that's put out there. We recently had 3 drivers terminated, 2 for cardinal infractions, 1 for a cell phone violation, which is progressive discipline. So let's have a discussion. Number 1, about cell phones. Cell phones, we already know what it is. It's a taboo subject, but it's clearly outlined. You have one opportunity once you get caught, which could be a suspension as well, or pretty much a suspension or no suspension, depending on whatever the company says, and you have 1 year after that to get caught again on camera before termination. So the first one is a final warning, and after that is termination. So it's pretty clear cut with the cell phones. Now this is where it gets tricky, because what was said in the meeting was, hey, be careful with your brakes and still in time, and because one driver got fired for time and brakes and all of that. Let me tell you why the driver got fired. Because there's a lot of misinformation. The driver didn't get fired because they took their break. The driver got fired because there was multiple stops before starting their route that were unjustifiable, right? So the problem isn't with the company, you taking a break, stopping at a donut shop. You stopping at a donut shop isn't a problem. Hell, we know with certain cities where all of the drivers stop to go to a specific donut shop. So that's not the problem, right? That's not the problem. I'm gonna give you guys context in this video. So first off, our CBA says that we're entitled to a paid 15-minute rest break every 4 hours or a major fraction thereof. It says those breaks should be taken as close to the middle of the work segment as practicable. That's guidance. It's not a hard rule. It doesn't say 2 hours. It doesn't say you can't take one at the beginning or the end. That's misinformation. So if you hear somebody telling you you can't take a break here, you can't take a break there, that's misinformation, right? So for context, if you start at 5 o'clock like I do, and you get to your first stop at about 5:45, 5:50 after getting out of the yard at 5:30, right? That's normal, right? So if you would stop at a donut shop and get your donut and coffee, and then you would get to your stop a little bit later, let's just say 10 minutes more, or let's just say instead of 5:45 or 5:50, it's more like 6 or 6:05. That's not a problem, right? Preferably, they would prefer that you take it a little bit further along. That would be ideal. It's a suggestion. It's not a hard line. But the reason the driver specifically got canned was because there's a planned start time, and he may have been over 30, 45 minutes compared to the start time that he's used to, that he's supposed to be starting his route. So that could be taken at, or that can be perceived as you're abusing your brakes or something. So that's what the issue was. It was not the driver just taking a regular break at a donut shop. And no, it's multiple off-route stops, meaning I'm on my Monday route, but I drive all the way to Wednesday's route to stop at this specific donut shop or breakfast spot. and then I go to Thursday's area to another place to get some whatever. I stop at whatever department store, and then I go somewhere else and I burn another 5 or 10 minutes doing something else before getting to my route when the planned stop time, the planned route start time is thrown off. So it wasn't him stopping at a donut shop or him taking a break at the end of the day at the dump. That's not what got him fired, right? That's not what got that person fired. So if they can interpret what you're doing as abuse, so in other words, if I pick up 3 or 4 stops on my route and it's about 6:30, 6:45, and I stop at a let's just say I have a 7-Eleven on my route, and I stop and I grab me something from 7-Eleven, and I pretty much go back in my truck after 15 minutes. That's not what this is about. This is about something that is considered, whether it's reasonable or not reasonable, right? Like you're making multiple off-route stops that have nothing to do with your actual route. So just be careful with abusing your 15-minute break. And it's under my belief that that situation is a lot deeper than what I'm willing to explain on a video. But if you take your 15-minute break and you move on, you should have no problem. You'll have no problem defending yourself in the event that they try to jam you up, right? So the company isn't going after the break. They're going after the abuse of the break. And if they're trying to see if you have a pattern of doing this. In other words, you have a continuous basis of doing this Monday through Friday, where you're breaking off your route, going here, you're going over there. That's the real issue. That's not the issue. Isn't the 15-minute break itself, but I was seeing it kind of being demonized this morning, and I'm like, no, you don't have to wait 2 hours, or you don't have to break at the end. It's about not abusing the rules, right? And what I kind of saw was a little bit of, you're supposed to take your break here, you're supposed to take your break there, and this stuff is like, look, you take your break when you need to take your break. And I saw some stuff where I suspect, now I'm not going to get into that, but there was some stuff that was said that's just pure misinformation. A lot of guys just don't understand the contract. See, and that's a problem. I know the contract. If you're confused about something, come up to somebody and ask somebody. But if you don't understand the contract, don't listen to everybody. Speak. Hey, man, I'm confused about this, Papita. I'm confused about this part. Could you help me understand? And the problem is, a lot of drivers don't understand the contract. So how are you going to improve a contract that you don't understand? That's the biggest problem that we have going into 2026. So when it's time to negotiate, you don't even know what you're going to fight for. I could list like 5, 6, maybe even 10 things off top of the head that would make our contract better outside of money. But until we just stop running off of these rumors and start working off facts, we can walk into negotiations prepared, not divided and confused. See, that's exactly what they want, right? And I suspect that they send their moles out to kind of like get their message across to try to intimidate. That stuff doesn't intimidate me. I know the contract. If I don't know nothing else, I know this contract, right? And there was a whole thing about getting the target off of your back, right? Get this target off your back. And what that implies is work faster. If you got to skip your breaks, right? They'll tell you, oh, take your breaks. They'll tell you, take your breaks, right? Like I heard somebody say, I heard a manager say, take your break. But the thing is, oh, you got to make it at this planned time that the computer tells you that you got to make it at this planned time. You got to hit the planned time. And then you got to do this because you don't want that target on you. You know, get that target off your back. When we all know the target is always on your back. It never leaves your back. That's why they have third eye cameras on the truck. That's why they have GPS, right? That's why they have drive cam. They got a thing with AI now that watches when you run a stop sign. You think they do that because they're like, oh, these drivers are such good people. No. You're always being monitored. They're trying to catch everything. So when you cut corners, like, oh, I'm gonna skip this break, I'm gonna back up without waiting 2 or 3 seconds, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and you take that risk, that same system is going to use that against you because you're trying to rush, you're trying to skip out on breaks, you're trying to do this, you're trying to do that, and that's a flaw. You know, the target is always on your back. You can't escape it by running harder. You don't escape it by giving up your rights. The only way you protect yourself is knowing the contract, being educated about your contract, driving safe, not falling for the fear tactics, right? Because breaks, they aren't a favor. They're your right. And safety is not optional. It's survival. You know, it's the way that we improve our contract. But when you have people telling you, "Oh man, you gotta, man, don't let it come down. Don't be wise. Protect yourself." Right? Those 3 drivers, they already got replaced. Company's moving on. They're not sitting up here saying, we're trying to bring this driver back or anything like that. It's over with. Once they make their decision, it's final. But the key point of this is misinformation, man. There was a driver that came up to me and was like, "Oh, they told me to do this and they told me to do that. They can't tell me to do this." Yeah, they can tell you to do this. They can tell you to do that, but you don't know the contract. And the thing that he was talking about, he could have got fired on the spot. Right there on the spot. But he don't know the contract. He's going off of this person over here and this person over there, and this used to be in this contract. Like, get educated on the contract. If you don't know the contract, pick up a phone, call somebody. Hey man, I need Papito's number. I need to talk to him. But we're so divided, man. We're so divided. We can't unify because none of us have the proper education and know the contract. And that's the message of the day. Get educated, man.